de demorar. Não, começou. All right, everybody. Good evening. This is Luis Maya, and you are participating in a class which we call the Behavioral Economics of Global Affairs. Thanks, everybody, for participating. It's very good to be here. I was just about to make a comment about one of our exercises, okay? Então, só esclarecendo, boa noite a todos e todas que estão aqui. Eu já ia começar a fazer um comentário sobre a lista de exercícios. Um colega perguntou sobre uma questão específica. Aí a gente lembrou que tinha que começar a gravar. All right, so let's have a look. We're talking about our first list of exercises. And then we have this question here. Oh, by the way, this list of exercises, it is due on November the 27th. That means next Sunday. I'm sorry, this Sunday. All right? Então, tem que entregar essa lista no mais tardar até 27 de novembro.
Professor,
Oi?
tem um pessoal comentando no grupo do WhatsApp que está solicitando entrada para aula. Se o senhor puder dar uma olhada.
Pois é, cara, não está aparecendo aqui para mim. Deixa eu parar a apresentação e ver o que está acontecendo. Peça no WhatsApp também, por favor. Quem falou, eu não ouvi exatamente quem falou. Vicente, faz um favor para mim, peça essa pessoa assim. O professor Luiz não está vendo o seu pedido. Feche o seu navegador e abra de novo e peça a entrada, por favor. Obrigado.
Professor, boa noite.
Oi.
É porque esse link que o senhor botou agora no grupo é diferente do link do Classroom. Eu estava tentando pelo Classroom e não estava, o senhor não autorizava. Eu acho que só depois que eu vi o Zap é que eu botei o link certo. Acho que está acontecendo isso.
E tem um link no Classroom?
Eu estava entrando pelo Classroom. Aí não é o mesmo link. Aí há um tempão que eu estava esperando. Aí quando eu vi no Zap, é outro link. Aí deu certo.
Deixa eu ver aqui. Exatamente. Esse link do Classroom não é o que a gente usa, não. Esse que é o problema mesmo. Deixa eu ver lá. Vou entrar lá na outra sala para ver o que está acontecendo. Se tem alguém por lá me esperando. Participar agora. Pronto, lá na outra sala está vazio. Só tenho eu mesmo.
Tinha eu que sair, desisti.
Desculpe, Mônica.
Sem problema.
Vamos ver se a turma vai acertar agora. O link que a gente está usando é esse que eu coloquei lá. Eu acho que eu vou até cancelar aquele, se eu tiver como suspender aquele, para não aparecer. Gerenciar. Pronto. Vou tirar ele daqui. Pronto, que agora ninguém vai achar que tem um link lá no Google Classroom. Mas obrigado aí pelo alerta. Bom, deixa eu ver se tem mais alguém chegando.
O pessoal disse que ainda assim não conseguiu. Não sei se o senhor tem um acesso aí a olhar, de repente o senhor pode saber qual é o problema e eu estou transmitindo errado de alguma forma. O pessoal disse que não conseguiu não reiniciar o navegador e tentar no link que o senhor postou lá no grupo.
Cara, mas engraçado que eu... Bom, deixa eu fazer o seguinte, eu vou sair e vou voltar. Vamos ver se aí eu consigo ver o pedido deles, tá? Só um minutinho. Pronto, agora apareceu. Acho que agora vai entrar todo mundo. 1, 2, 3. Deixa eu ver. Todo mundo entrou agora? Estamos todo mundo aqui? Se alguém estava tentando entrar e não conseguia, mas agora conseguiu, faz um joinha aí para mim. Beleza, Daniel. Obrigado. Desculpe aí, amigo. João também, João Amaral. Valeu, gente. Obrigado. Então, vamos retomar, então. All right. So, as I was saying, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Behavior Economics of Global Affairs. This is our third week of classes, and we are just about to have a look at a question from one of you about the list of exercises, ok? A gente estava na iminência de dar uma olhadinha na lista de exercícios, porque um colega de vocês estava com uma dúvida na questão 4. Então, eu vou compartilhar aqui a minha tela com todos vocês. All right, so let's see again. Share the whole screen. It's better this way. Okay, so what we are looking here, yeah, there we go. So question 4. According to Herbert Simon's work on bounded rationality, our minds must be understood considering the environment in which they evolved. Aí, em português, fala assim: de acordo com o trabalho de Simon sobre racionalidade limitada, nossas mentes devem ser compreendidas tendo em vista o ambiente em que evoluímos. All right, so this statement is asking you if it is true that Simon's point of view was that. Então a pergunta é assim: era o ponto de vista do Simon que essa racionalidade limitada é uma teoria que nos leva a pensar, poxa, olha, o cérebro humano foi desenvolvido lá naquele ambiente da savana africana. Então ele mais ou menos tem soluções ali para funcionar bem na savana, só que a gente não vive mais na savana africana. A gente não vive em tribos, a gente não tem que caçar, e a gente, a maior parte do tempo, não corre risco de ser devorado por um tigre ou por algum animal selvagem. A maior parte do tempo, pelo menos. So, this is the question. And you have to say, yeah, it is true, that was Simon's point of view, or no, that's not a discussion that has anything to do with Simon, ok? Então, você tem que decidir se esse é um ponto de vista expresso lá no trabalho do Simon, mas isso não tem nada a ver com aquecimento global, não. Isso tem a ver com a maneira como o cérebro funciona, as características do raciocínio humano, e aí, se isso tem a ver com a maneira como o cérebro foi desenvolvido lá na savana africana. All right. It's easy enough, right? Eu acho que a resposta já está óbvia para todo mundo. But then again, it was worth it, okay? Okay, guys. Any questions before we start? Alguém tem alguma pergunta antes da gente começar? Okay, okie dokie. Please confirm to me that you can see this big picture showing the behavior economics of global affairs, Luis Maya, cognitive biases, and experimental economics. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, good. So what we got here, people, look, we're having this class kind of 3 stages, right? First, we're going to start talking about individual behavior, right? The way our brains are wired, right? A maneira como os nossos cérebros estão desenhados ali, estão conectados. Cada neurônio do nosso cérebro funcionando, o funcionamento cerebral, as decisões individuais. Then we're going to move to organizational behavior, how people behave when they participate in companies, in teams or in an association of some sort. Como é que a gente trabalha em grupos. And later, we're going to talk about social behavior or communitary behavior, right? When we are talking about lots and lots of people working in a kind of a coordinated way, ok? Então, a gente vai falar mais adiante sobre...
E por quê?
Yes? Question? Acho que um microfone abriu aí rapidamente e fechou. So, as we start talking about individual behavior, like one of the first steps is to understand cognitive biases. So let's take a look at what those are and how they work, okay? So the definition of cognitive biases, it is like a sort of a pattern of systematic mistakes, a tendency to make some mistakes, or at least to deviate from what people generally think rationality is. Então, o viés cognitivo é como se fosse, assim, pequenos desvios, padrões previsíveis de deslizes que a gente comete quando a gente tenta raciocinar e que muitas vezes revelam uma certa diferença entre o que as pessoas pensam que deveria ser o comportamento racional. All right. There is this huge important alert here, okay? The important alert written in red is cognitive biases. Those are not cultural aspects of choice making, okay? We have to distinguish between culture and cognitive aspects of decision making. So how can we do that? Well, think about it. If some sort of pattern of mistake, if it happens in Brazil, in China, and in England, well, then it is not cultural, right?
Sort of what, teacher? Partner.
Pattern, padrão.
Okay.
The word here, let me show you. I'm talking about this word here. Oh, let me go. Patterns of systematic.
Oh, okay, I see.
Okay? Isso aqui quer dizer padrão ou padrões, tá? So, what we observe is like most of the times people make the same mistakes. So, we can predict those. We can say, oh, I know how it's going to happen. You see, it's going to be something like this and this and that. So it is predictable. And I was trying to stress out here one point. Sometimes we think that those are cultural. Let me give you an example in a case in which people think it is more like a cultural thing, okay? Um exemplo em que as pessoas acabam confundindo padrões cognitivos com padrões culturais, com comportamentos influenciados pela cultura. Have you guys heard of the expression us versus them? Alguém aqui já ouviu a expressão nós contra eles?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so us versus them, sometimes people say, you know what, in Brazil, people fight a lot. It is part of our culture. It is always us versus them. It is always like PT against Bolsonaro or Corinthians against Flamengo. And then some people may look at this and say, oh, this is a cultural thing. What I'm trying to say is that us versus them, it is widespread. It is all over the world. We all tend to think like that. Se você puser um chinês, puser um americano, puser um alemão na frente da televisão, estiver passando um jogo de futebol de dois times que ele não conhece, aí você fala assim, eu gosto muito daquele ali. Aquele time ali é um time muito bom e tal, o pessoal é muito gente fina e tal. As soon as people start watching the match, they take sides. and they start like cheering up for one of those. Então, é natural que as pessoas escolham um lado e comecem a competir. Comecem a dizer, ah, não, meu time é esse, o time daquele é de outra maneira. I think there was even an example in that talk from Dan Ariely about paintings. Do you remember those? Quem foi que assistiu aquele vídeo que eu recomendei do Dan Ariely?
Yeah, I saw on TAD, right?
Yes. Remember about paintings? They said, okay, so you like this, you are more like this painter type, and someone else is like that other guy, the other painter.
Yeah, I remember.
And then people began to, like fight or, I don't know, compete, trying to support their own sides. Even though
and the crowd agreed, everybody started to laugh, right?
Yeah. So it's like a made up thing, but people somehow dive into it. As pessoas mergulham naquela ideia de falar, ah, o meu time é esse aqui, e agora eu sou contra o outro e tal. So it is not cultural. It is something intrinsic to the human brain, and it happens all over the world. All right? So cognitive biases, many times they are mistakenly taken as if they were cultural aspects of choice making, okay? And they are not. They are inherited. It is part of the way the brain works, okay? And why are they important? Well, they can affect decision making. They will affect behavior. They will actually explain some behaviors. They will somehow blur our judgment. Algumas vezes eles vão ofuscar o nosso juízo, o nosso julgamento. And they play tricks at us with our memories. Então, eles também acabam fazendo pegadinhas com a gente na maneira como a gente acessa as memórias. All right. So, those are kind of very important things. Now, when you look at a picture like this, you're going to say, whoa, wait, Luis. Are you saying that we have to study all of those cognitive biases? Then I would say, no. Only a specialist would know all of them. I don't know all of them, okay? So what I'm trying to say is this. For a long time, psychologists and scientists have created experiments, have applied science to document what we call cognitive biases. Então, é um longo processo de psicólogos, cientistas, criando experimentos e aplicando esses experimentos de uma maneira bem equilibrada para mostrar e documentar e provar que existem vieses cognitivos. So what we see here is like a huge compilation of those. But each point that you can see, each of these lines here, they are about one sort of cognitive biases, okay? So if you sum up all of those here, you're going to get more than 150 cognitive bias. And this is just from a list created in 2015, I believe. Let's see. I don't see the date here, but yeah, I think it is 2015, ok? Então, o que vocês veem, gente, é que tem uma lista muito grande de vieses cognitivos que foram sendo documentados, estudados, identificados por psicólogos e cientistas que tiveram que fazer experimentos científicos para encontrar para realmente provar que existiam esses vieses cognitivos. All right, but we can divide those basically in 4 big areas, okay? So, we have here first, we have the ones that are associated with too much information. Às vezes a gente acha que ter muita informação é bom. Acontece que se a gente tiver informação demais, o nosso cérebro também tende a derrapar. The second possibility, so this part here, is about not meaning enough. So you may have lots and lots of information, but you don't know exactly what to do with those pieces of information. Então, algumas vezes você até tem muitas informações, mas elas não estão fazendo sentido para você. The third case is whenever we need to act fast. You can't imagine how many times we make mistakes just because we have to make a decision quickly. Então, toda vez que a gente tiver que tomar uma decisão importante, não pode fazer a decisão rápida. A gente está muito sujeito a derrapar quando a gente está pressionado pelo tempo. And the last case, decisions we have to make when we deal with our memory. Our memories are not as perfect as we think they are. So let me just give you an example of this, okay? There is one thing here, it's called pick and rule. It's very small here. Let me see if I can make it closer. Yes, I can. Pick and rule, okay? Can you guys see here? Let me see if I can. Yeah, this is as larger as I can make it. So this pick and rule, what is it about? Let me just give you this as an example. Let's suppose that you meet me and you are telling me about your last vacation, okay? Então você vai me encontrar assim um dia e começar a me contar sobre as suas últimas férias. So you're going to tell me, oh yeah, it was great. There was this perfect moment in which I was in Porto de Galinhas. It was very nice. The beach was very, very clean and the sun was perfect. It was not too hot. So it was the best day in the beach. It was really great. I'll say, oh yeah, fine. And then I ask you, so when did you return? Quando é que você voltou? I said, oh no, I came back yesterday. It was fun. I mean, the street was not too packed. I didn't get too much traffic. Tá. Se você me contar uma história e você me disser como que foi o ponto mais agudo, assim, mais de destaque daquela história, e você me disser como que acabou aquela experiência, se essas coisas forem positivas, a sua memória da viagem vai ser sempre positiva. Now, if you were to tell me a different vacation, a vacation that you took a long time ago, and when you try to remember that, you remember immediately a big problem that you had at the hotel that was like really annoying. Well, it turns out that that specific moment will spoil the whole experience, at least in your memory. Então, mesmo que você tenha tido umas férias ótimas lá há 10 anos atrás, mas que na hora que você vai se lembrar, você se lembra de um momento agudo que foi muito ruim, tem uma grande chance de que a memória toda sobre as férias seja contaminada. E que você fale assim, não, aquelas férias não foram boas. You forget to tell me that, like, for 15 days, everything was perfect. But there was this problem, and that ends up contaminating your whole memory. Então, algumas vezes, por ter tido um momento muito ruim, a gente associa um sentimento negativo a toda uma experiência no passado. So, what I'm trying to show you is that this kind of tendency, you can predict it and you're going to find it any place. You're going to find with Brazilian people, you're going to find with Chinese people, you're going to find with Russian people or people from Cuba. Everyone has this tendency, every one of us. Então, cada um de nós tem essa tendência a deixar contaminar uma memória de uma experiência se tiver tido um momento agudo negativo. Ou, se for o contrário, também uma coisa muito positiva, a gente acaba associando a toda aquela vivência no passado. All right, so those are predictable kind of mistakes of our brains, right? All right, we have to start talking a little bit about those, but we can see them all the time in our lives, okay? There is this thing called bandwagon effect. Let me see here. Yeah, this thing called bandwagon effect. So what's the point? Bandwagon effect. Can you see the word here? Bandwagon.
Okay.
All right. So bandwagon effect is like when you tend to behave like everybody else. If I were to translate bandwagon effect, let me write it down here. Bandwagon effect. Bandwagon. Oh, it's kind of hard to write this down. Bandwagon effect. Efeito manada seria a melhor tradução. In Portuguese would be like efeito manada. So check this out. You have like two different bus stops. And there is everyone is here for the first bus stop. Do you think this guy will actually stand out here? He's gonna say, you know what? I must be mistaken. I think I better jump in and move like everybody else. So it is like the conformity pressure. Essa pressão para a gente agir em conformidade com os pares. Well, this kind of thing is predictable. I mean, it's part of the human behavior. And therefore, you can find polarization from political debates jumping into all sorts of conversation. We are living in a time of polarization. As pessoas passam a pensar juntas, passam a pensar em bando. Ah, se todo mundo acha que o presidente foi eleito por fraude, eu também vou achar que foi fraude. Ah, se todo mundo acha que o outro lado é todo mundo maluco, eu também vou achar que do outro lado todo mundo é maluco. People tend to work as like a group. It is hard to think by ourselves, okay? Individually. So we have to be very, very determined to maintain our opinion. Se a gente tiver uma opinião original, é muito difícil de manter. Porque a gente vai encontrar outras pessoas agindo e pensando de forma diferente e acaba gerando um desconforto na gente ser diferente. So, in Portuguese, it would be efeito manada. Mas em inglês, we call it bandwagon effect. The second one, we call ambiguity effect. Efeito ambiguidade. Ambiguity effect. So what exactly is ambiguity effect? It's like this. If I offer you two possibilities for dinner, and I tell you, okay, you can pick. The first dish is just like French fries and a meat and beef, okay? Você pode escolher dois pratos para jantar hoje. O primeiro é batata frita e um filé. All right. What about the second one? Well, the second one, it goes like this. I'm going to take this fish, but I'm not just going to cook it in a stove. Later on, I'm going to bake it in an oven. And later on, I'm going to take it out. I'm going to slice it. And I'm going to mix with some potato. Then I will let it wait for 16 hours. Then I'm going to put some olive oil. Yeah. Okay, just finish here. If I have one dish that is quite simple, easy to understand, and the other one that's very complicated, there's a good chance people will pick the first one. Toda vez que a gente tem que escolher entre coisas que parecem ser complexas e cheias de detalhes e coisas que sejam simples, most of the times we tend to go to the simple one. So we avoid too much information, complex information, and we hate ambiguity, things that we think are both good and bad. So If I tell you that this dish, it is good for your health because it will help your brain, but it's not so good for your breath, and then you have to balance those two things. Se eu disser que algum prato é muito bom para a sua saúde, mas ele deixa mau hálito, você fala, bom, então, na média, é bom, é ruim, Alright, so we tend to run away of those options, okay? So we don't like ambiguity, we don't like too much information. The third one here, can you see this guy? He only think about taxes, stress, crisis. So it looks like this guy's thinking all the time about bad things. So it turns out that if you only think about bad things, you end up miserable. We tend to perceive reality, and that perception is affected by our recurrent thoughts. The name of this thing here is attentional bias. So let me write it here. Viés atencional. So what exactly is this again? Our brains and our perceptions of reality, they tend to be affected by our recurrent thoughts. Os nossos pensamentos mais recorrentes tendem a afetar a nossa capacidade de enxergar e de interpretar o mundo. Se a gente só pensa, só nutre pensamentos positivos, agradáveis, favoráveis, we go out on the streets and we perceive reality as being more generous, as being better, things are getting better. We actually end up seeing what we expect to see. On the other hand, I'm sorry, this is attention with a T, sorry. Attentional bias. Attentional bias. Se a gente só pensa coisas ruins, só pensa negativo, só pensa que tudo vai dar errado, que a gente vai adoecer, que os nossos amigos vão se lascar. Se o nosso pensamento mais recorrente são negativos, a gente tende a olhar para a realidade e só ver coisas negativas acontecendo. Alright, so this is quite important, guys. Look at this thing first, please. Many of us live lives that are much worse than they could be. Às vezes a gente foca tanto em problemas que a gente vive uma vida pesada. A gente vive uma vida triste, cansada, para baixo, porque a gente só foca nas partes ruins da nossa vida. I'm not saying people don't have problems. Well, we do. We all have problems. But the point is that if we only focus on our problems, our lives are worse. A nossa própria vida fica pior. And one more time, this is not something that happens to Brazilian people, or only to American people, or only to French people. This is all over the world. All of us. We are deeply affected by our recurring thoughts. A gente é profundamente afetado, a nossa capacidade de perceber o mundo, profundamente afetada pelos nossos pensamentos mais recorrentes. Alright, so that was just for start. Let's have 3 different cognitive biases here, and then we're going to identify them in simple illustrations, okay? But let me give people a chance to read out a little bit. So let's start with this one. Bias, blind spot. Who would like to try and read this sentence for me? Quem que gostaria de tentar ler sem vergonha nenhuma, sem constrangimento nenhum? Quem gostaria de abrir o microfone e tentar ler essa frase aqui para mim?
I can try.
All right, go ahead.
The tendency to see oneself as less biased
Biased.
biased than other people, or to be able to identify more cognitive biases in others than in oneself.
All right, very good, very good. Just a couple of suggestions. This word here, we almost don't say this letter, okay? So what we say is biased, and then a silent D, almost a silent D. So we say biased, okay? And this guy here, it's an open I, so it's identity or identify, okay? Great, very good pronunciation. The tendency to see oneself as less biased than other people, or to be able to identify more cognitive biases in others than in oneself. So, this is like a plague for behavioral economists. Nós que somos economistas comportamentais, a gente olha para o lado e vê viéses cognitivos em todo mundo, como se eles não tivessem também presentes na gente. Acontece que essa maldição não é só do economista comportamental. Todo mundo acha que o outro não está vendo a coisa correta, está vendo a coisa enviesada, enquanto a gente está sempre vendo a coisa certa.
My neighbor did it all the time.
Yes, we all look at other people and say, how can this person not see? It's obvious. But then we're gonna look again, we're gonna say, oh, no, yeah, wait, I was wrong. Então a gente sempre acha que o outro é que está com visão enviesada. A gente nunca acha que o nosso olhar está enviesado. All right, look at the name of this thing here, guys. This thing is called bias blind spot. Então, é o ponto cego para vieses. A gente tem um ponto cego em relação aos nossos próprios vieses. Blind spot é ponto cego. So it means we cannot perceive correctly our own mistakes. Even when they are just like quick and no problem, not important mistakes. Mesmo quando elas são pequenos defeitos, pequenos deslizes, assim, a gente não consegue perceber em nós mesmos. A gente consegue ver com muita clareza nos dos outros. Quando alguém está sendo tendencioso, quando alguém não está vendo a coisa direito, a gente identifica rapidamente. Mas em nós mesmos, é como se a gente não tivesse um bom ponto de observação para se observar. We are not in a very good spot to look at ourselves. But we are in a very good spot to look at other people. All right. The second one here, choice supportive bias. Let's see, who else would like to practice your pronunciation? Read for me this sentence. Come on, guys. This is a short one. Go ahead.
I can try again.
All right, great. Let's go.
The tendency to remember one's choices as better than they actually were.
All right. That's a perfect pronunciation. Very good. A tendência de a gente lembrar as nossas escolhas melhores do que elas foram. And it turns out that when we're talking about couples, like my wife and I, whenever we remember a bad decision, each of us think it was the other one's decision. Toda vez que a gente se lembra de uma viagem que a gente fez e que a gente não gostou, a gente fala assim, não, aquilo foi ideia sua. Não, foi ideia sua. When we are talking about our choices, we always tend to think that they were good. We tend to say, no, actually, that was a good choice. And people look at me and say, come on, it all went wrong. How can you say it was a good choice? And I say, no, it was not so bad. All right, so when we are talking about our previous choices, we tend to support it. We tend to maintain our good opinion about it. Então a gente tende a não reconhecer erros. É muito difícil a gente falar assim, oh yeah, yeah, no, that was terrible idea and it was mine. Sorry guys. It's not everybody who does that. And it is natural. It is, I mean, people have to actually be mature to declare their mistakes, right? Realmente as pessoas têm que ser muito seguras, muito maduras para, quando cometem erros, assumirem sem problema. Opa, não, peraí, pessoal, aqui foi besteira minha, viu? But when you are not so mature like that, well, we tend to say, no, it was a good idea. Think again. I still believe it was a good idea. All right. Okay, but this one here, this, in my opinion, is the most important of all bias, okay? So let's see who else is going to be a volunteer here and who is going to read it, the sentence.
I will try now.
Okay, let's see.
The tendency to search for, interpret, focus on, and only remember information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions.
All right, that's great. Very good. So let's look at this. It is like a complex thing. It is saying here that we search for information that confirm our own conceptions. We tend to interpret information as being favorable to us. And we only focus on information that will be favorable to us. Então, olha só o que nós estamos falando aqui, gente. Quando a gente olha para a realidade, é como se a gente já tivesse uma opinião e a gente buscasse na realidade elementos que confirmassem a nossa opinião. Now, you may say, come on, I'm not like this. I'm very clear-minded. I can look straight at the problems and understand exactly what they are, how to solve them. I wish we were all like that. But many, many, many times we look at reality and we tend to look for elements that confirm our initial perception.
Professor, excuse me.
Okay.
It seems to me that the person is trying to fool yourself or no, or not.
No, it's worse than that. It's unconscious. Aqui a gente está falando de uma tendência que é inconsciente. É que como se eu falasse para você assim, Vitor, eu queria que você analisasse aqui esse time do Flamengo. Tá? O time do Flamengo que eu vou te contar é assim, ó, ele tem esse zagueiro assim assado, esse cara já foi campeão não sei aonde, esse aqui e tal. Mas na hora que eu comecei o problema, eu falei que o time era do Flamengo. Você, torcedor do esporte, detesta o Flamengo. Então, na hora que você começa a olhar para o time que eu estou descrevendo, os jogadores daquele time que eu estou descrevendo, você já começa a pensar assim, não gosto daquele cara, aquele ali nem queria, nem me desse de graça e tal. Então, você já tende a procurar defeito, porque eu estou falando do Flamengo.
Yeah, but the reality imposes yourself, right?
Yeah. Sometimes we later on will realize, but
and I have to swallow on it.
In case of Flamengo, yes.
No.
Flamengo is like one of the best teams, right, in the world.
Yeah, it's the
won
reality.
The Libertadores and all of that, right? Yeah, but my point is, we all tend to do this, and not only with topics like soccer or football or anything like that. We tend to do this about serious stuff. So think about it. Think about universities and researchers like 2,000 years ago. Imagine os pensadores da Grécia, imagine os filósofos, os primeiros cientistas. Imagina esses caras olhando para as estrelas e tentando descrever o que é, como que é essa dança de estrelas, que uma hora elas aparecem de um lugar, aparecem de outro, tentando explicar o universo. When these people look at the stars, they realize that the stars were moving in a predictable way. And they said, oh, I see what's going on. They are all moving and the earth is the center. Então, quando as pessoas olhavam para o céu, elas viam as estrelas se movendo numa maneira que parecia um movimento circular em torno da Terra. Portanto, a Terra é o centro do universo. So, once you establish that, you start interpreting all information available about stars, the sky, and everything else from that perspective. Yeah. And you're going to fight it. You're going to hold to that truth as if it were undisputable. Uma vez que você acredita que a Terra é o centro do universo, você vai interpretar todas as informações de uma maneira que confirmem aquela pré-concepção. So, what I say is this thing here is the archi-enemy of science. I have this feeling that science was created to fight confirmation bias. O que nós temos como ciência, método científico, é um antídoto contra o viés de confirmação. Um antídoto contra a tendência das pessoas a acreditarem em fatos e depois manterem a convicção naqueles fatos, mesmo quando apresentado com informações que os desmentem. So, when you have science, you are supposed to try as much as you can to prove that something is false. Um bom cientista não é o cara que sabe a verdade. É o cara que pegou uma tese e tentou de todas as formas mostrar que aquela tese era falsa. Se ele esgotou todas as formas que ele consegue... What's that?
With methods.
With methods? Well, with different methods, right? Yeah, with methodology. So, if this guy tried all the ways he could think of to disprove a theory, and he couldn't, he still won't say that the thing is true. He say, well, I have a good theory. Então, o papel do cientista é tentar negar uma tese. Se ele tentou e não conseguiu, quer dizer que ele achou a verdade? Não, ele fala assim, eu tenho uma boa teoria, mas eu nunca estou convencido de que isso é a verdade. Sempre pode haver alguma circunstância que vai provar que aquela teoria é falsa. So, you see, with science, we change completely the perspective. With confirmation bias, people tend to believe that something is true and they look for elements to prove their point. In science, you first state a theory and then you try as hard as you can to prove that you are wrong. You look for elements that will prove you wrong. Se você é um bom cientista, você é um cara que consegue procurar elementos para negar teorias. Isso é que é um bom cientista. So, in a sense, we have science in order to protect us from our confirmation biases. Imagine as pessoas tentando ir até a Lua com base na concepção de que a Terra é o centro do universo. Think about this. I mean, we would never get to the moon if we didn't have science. Never. Not a chance. It was an extremely dangerous entrepreneurship. Foi uma empreitada extremamente perigosa. Os caras tinham que ter muita confiança na ciência que eles estavam fazendo para botar 3, 4 caras dentro de um pedaço de metal, explodir uma bomba a velocidade de 500 quilômetros por hora e lançar os caras na atmosfera. So, if you were to only do that with our confirmation biases, these guys were done.
Yeah.
They were doomed. All right, so let's just have some illustration about this here. Okay, check this out. This one is one of my favorite. Oh, ivermectin works fine. No need to vaccinate.
It's polemic, Professor. It's polemic.
Oh, check this out here. All words are saying yes, 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 yes. And then here comes a guy, starts connecting the yeses, and he says, oh, I can see, I'm proving to you. The message here is no. It doesn't matter how many times you look at reality, you only see yes, yes, yes. You find a way to interpret that as a no. Okay, so this one here is confirmation bias, right? As pessoas buscam na realidade elementos que vão confirmar a sua opinião. Okay, so what about this one? This is Simpson, Homer Simpson. Everyone is stupid except me. Which of these here you guys think it is?
I think it's blind spot.
Yes, it's bias blind spot. I mean, we think we are great and we think everyone is stupid, right? So we are not in a good position to judge ourselves. But we think we have a very good opinion about others, right? Okay, so what about the last one here? Think about this guy saying for himself, I'm right. I know I'm right. I'm really, really sure I'm right. Really sure. Really, really sure I'm right. Well, I'm pretty sure anyway. So, whenever we were the ones that made the choice, it's hard to let go, okay? So this is an example of choice supportive bias, okay? When we are the ones with an opinion, we don't like to be criticized. We don't want to go back in our thoughts and say, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. It's very hard to do that. Yes, go ahead, Vitor.
Oh, sorry. No, it was
No.
nothing. It was nothing.
It was, okay, accidental, right? Foi acidente aí no microfone. Okay. All right, guys, let's have a look at 3 more of those, okay? And I promise you they are very, very interesting. Okay, the first one, conservatism. Wait, this is not about what you think about religion, what you think about abortion. It's not about anything like that, okay? What we call conservatism is just the tendency to revise one's belief insufficiently when we are presented with new evidence. Então, só quando as nossas opiniões são exaustivamente, comprovadamente negadas, é que a gente vai lá e fala assim, ah, não, realmente eu estava errado. Sometimes, even when the first signals are up and we should revise our opinion, we tend to keep it. So, we don't want to revise our beliefs all the time. We hold to them as if they were part of our identity. Então, as nossas crenças, as nossas opiniões, a gente só muda quando a gente é apresentado por um conjunto muito grande de evidências, ou então quando a evidência é muito dolorosa. Tem gente que tem ideias ruins sobre as outras pessoas, age de forma violenta, E só quando aquilo ali traz muito sofrimento para a própria pessoa é que ela resolve mudar. It is hard to change our beliefs and sometimes our behaviors too, okay? Now, check these two other ones here. They are great. They are very interesting. This one has everything to do how people lose money with the stock markets, okay? And this one, it's kind of a ironic cognitive bias, okay? So let's talk about the first one, Dunning-Kruger effect, okay? Efeito Dunning-Kruger. First of all, the name of this cognitive bias is the name of the two guys who actually identified it, okay? So let's take a look at the description here. The tendency for unskilled individuals to overestimate their own ability and the tendency for experts to underestimate their own ability. So if you ask a professor with, I don't know, 35 years of knowledge, who have read thousands of books about economics, and if you ask this person, what do you think is gonna happen with inflation next year? And then this person says, well, I'm not perfectly sure. I have a feeling it's gonna go down. Então, se pergunta para um grande especialista, um professor de economia com 35 anos de experiência, e fala assim, o que você acha sobre a inflação no ano que vem? Fala assim, bom, eu não tenho muita certeza, mas tudo indica que deve cair. Then, you stop and go find another economist. Find a guy who has just finished college. Pega um economista que acabou de botar a mão no diploma dele. Aí pergunta para ele, o que você acha que vai ser a inflação no ano que vem? And then he's going to tell you, oh, it's obvious, it's going to go up, or it's going to go down. So he's very confident. He thinks he knows it all, right? So if you are unskilled, you just read a book about some topic and you feel like you know everything. And some other people, even when they study a whole lot, they actually understand how much they should study still. Então, quando as pessoas estudam muito, elas acabam tendo uma noção mais clara do quanto que elas desconhecem. Enquanto se uma pessoa acabou de estudar, ela tem essa ilusão de que já domina aquele assunto. Acabou de começar a estudar um assunto, já acha que domina aquele assunto. Now, this thing happens in real life. You can see that all the time. And maybe the most extreme example of that was from a Greek philosopher who said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. Pensa num dos maiores filósofos gregos de toda a história, uma das pessoas mais sabidas do mundo, ficou famosa pela frase: a única coisa que eu sei é de que eu não sei nada. So that's a very extreme case, right? A guy who actually understands deeply nature of people, the societies, the government, the state, and the person says, oh, come on. What I know is so little, much less than we should know. And some people read a book, read an article in the newspaper, and they already feel like they own it.
Ignorance is happiness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There is this phrase, ignorance is bliss.
It's bliss, right?
Yeah. Ignorância é uma dádiva, é um prazer. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Oh, by the way, you can try this thing over and over with professions. You get that all the time. There are some famous studies.
Someone send you a question on chat.
Oh, thank you. Let me have a look at it here. Right. Filtro natural, professor. It's like a self-sabotage in both sides. This is João Gabriel. Well, kind of, yes. I see your point, João. It looks like someone is without knowing, actually hurting himself or herself, right? Yeah, it looks like that. But the point is that we are too harsh on ourselves when we know a lot. We raise the bar to compare ourselves when we are experts. And when we are not, we tend to lower the bar. Então é como se a gente ficasse arrogante quando a gente sabe pouco, e a gente ficasse humilde demais quando a gente sabe muito. Yeah, so it is in both cases you're not helping yourself. I agree with you. Great. Good point, João. Now let's have a look at this endowment effect, okay? Endowment effect. Who would like to read that? Anyone to practice your English?
Can I try?
Yes, please.
The tendency for people to demand much more to give up an object than they would be willing to pay to acquire it.
Great. Very good pronunciation. Very, very good. Então, pessoal, a tendência de a pessoa pedir uma quantia muito maior para vender um objeto do que ela estaria disposta a pagar se fosse para comprar. So when things are ours, we don't want to get rid of them without a very, very generous compensation. But we want to buy stuff, we always think that we can pay less for it. Now, the question I want to make is, can you see how people lose money in the stock market because of this? Dá para você imaginar como é que as pessoas acabam perdendo dinheiro no mercado de capitais por causa desse endowment effect? Which, by the way, you can prove. If people have just started investing in the stock market, it's like 100% prediction they will make the same mistakes. But my question is, can you guys see how you can buy and sell stocks in a way that will make you lose money according to this endowment effect? Alguém consegue deduzir como é que isso acontece lá no mercado acionário?
With speculations, I guess.
Well, it's a sort of a speculation, but it's actually decisions that are very common. Let me tell you the answer for that question. It's quite interesting. It goes like this. Let's suppose that Sarah bought some stocks from Petrobras, okay? And then Sarah checked the price of Petrobras a couple of days later, the quotes, and Petrobras had gone up, right? Então a Sarah ficou toda feliz. Comprou as ações da Petrobras a 25. Quando ela foi ver na semana seguinte, elas estavam valendo 30. Said, wow, I gained lots of money. Oh, I'm happy, and so on. So what does she do? She says, well, I just bought Petrobras at 25, and now they are 28, so I'm going to sell it. Então, quando ela já teve um ganho aí de mais de 10% em poucos dias, beleza, deixa eu vender. Aproveitar logo, colocar esse lucro no bolso. So many people, when the choices that they make in the stock market, they go up, they tend to quickly take out the money and say, okay, I got my profit, I'm satisfied with that. So what's wrong with that? Well, nothing wrong, but it turns out that many times Petrobras would still go up 30, 32, 35. Quando subiu de 25 para 28, ela já fala, deixa eu sacar, deixa eu garantir o meu lucro. Vai que depois, amanhã, essas ações caem. So we tend to withdraw faster than in a different situation. Let me tell you the second situation. Now, let's suppose that it was not Sarah, but it was Victor, okay? Victor bought Petrobras. And then he bought it at 25, okay? Comprou as ações da Petrobras a R$ 25. A couple of days later, Victor checked the market and realized that Petrobras went down to 20. As ações que eles tinham comprado a 25 caíram para 20. You know what Victor does? He gets more money and he buys more Petrobras. You say, come on, Victor would do that? I say, yes, unfortunately, it's very common. People think like this. Oh, if it dropped from 25 to 20, it means it's very cheap right now. So I'm going to buy almost the same amount that I bought originally. So when these things go up, I'm going to recover my loss.
Yeah, but it is the recommendation, right?
No, no,
No?
this is not the recommendation. I'm terribly sorry to say that.
Sometimes it could be a good idea, right?
No, this is called averaging prices. When things go bad, you shouldn't pray, you shouldn't buy more. You should get
Yeah,
out
but
as
I'm waiting
fast
to
as you
grow
can.
up in other time, and I will gain a lot of money.
No, I see. In some occasions, you can get money out of that, especially if you can understand when a stock has went down all the way it could.
Yeah, I see.
So you have to wait until Petrobras go all the way to 4 reais or 7 reais. I remember, nobody told me, I remember when Petrobras went down to 7 reais. And I look at some of my friends, some economists like me, and I said, come on, we should get all the money we can and buy Petrobras. And people told me, you don't know, Luis, this thing could go down to 3 or to 2. But I had the feeling that this thing was going up. So I bought some. Later on, I sold when it was like 12 or 14. But I never waited until it got to 35. So it turns out that people, when they just start putting money in the stocks, they tend to sell it and to realize profits faster than they should, and they tend to stick to losses much, much longer than they should. They keep the hope that this thing was going up some bombs at some point in the future, ok? Então é muito
Okay.
interessante. As pessoas iniciantes no mercado de ações, elas revelam esse comportamento imediatamente. Ganhei o dinheiro, que eu tirar meu lucro rapidinho. Ah, foi 5%, foi 6%. Ela às vezes deixou de ganhar mais 20%, mais 30%, porque ela queria garantir logo o seu ganho. Quando cai o preço da ação, a pessoa fala, ah, não vou abandonar o barco agora, eu vou colocar mais. Quando subir, eu compenso a perda. E muitas vezes essa pessoa vai até lá embaixo com o barco. Aí quando chega lá no final, que já está no pico, ela fala, não aguento mais, vende. Aí começa a subir.
Oh, I'm searching for this feeling.
Yeah. But unfortunately, it happens so many times that sometimes people ask me about how I make my investments in stock market, and I tell them, look, you have lots and lots of analysts telling you about which stocks are best, which companies you should be associated with. And if I had to give you any sort of advice, I would say, please remember that you have to have one method. You can't change your opinion all the time. You have to try and be consistent, which means you have to pick up maybe not one company, but a sector in which you know a lot, about which you have information, you follow the news, you understand what's going on. Então, muitas vezes, as pessoas, para terem sucesso no investimento de ações, elas precisam conhecer melhor um setor, em vez de pegar uma dica de uma companhia que vai subir ou descer. And it's never too much to say, you have to know yourself, right? In order to be a good investor, you have to know more about yourself, your vulnerabilities, your weakness, ok? Se você souber bastante sobre as suas vulnerabilidades, as suas fraquezas, tem uma boa chance de que você vai se proteger delas. All right. Oh, this is getting too philosophical, Luis, but yeah, it's how it goes. All right, so let me just finish this class here. We are almost done here. Let me just show you how the Dunning-Kruger effect actually happens, okay? So in this diagram here, as time goes, people develop more competence in a certain subject, okay? À medida que o tempo passa, as pessoas vão desenvolvendo o seu grau de competência. But confidence doesn't go like in a straight line. The very little jump you have in competence, you tend to feel very proud of yourself and think that, oh, I know everything about this. So as time goes, you started to realize, wait, it's more complicated than I thought. I'll have to study some more. At some point, people even start saying, oh, this is too complicated. I will never understand this. And later on, people start getting confident again. So only people who are very, very much competent, they can tell you how hard it is. And then they will say, look, I know something. I don't know that much. Okay? Remember, whenever you look for a lawyer, you ask the lawyer, look, this and this thing happened to me. A companhia Claro Telefônica fez isso e aquilo aqui comigo. Você acha que eu ganho uma ação na justiça? Every single lawyer you ask that, they will tell you, sure, we will win. Sign here, I'm going to help you, we're going to make money. The vast majority of lawyers will always tell you that you have a case, that you will win money in a court. Well, it turns out that if he or she is too confident, maybe you should watch out.
It's better call Saul.
Yeah, exactly. Saul is the perfect example of someone that is not too confident, right? It's a guy who says, well, let's have a second look at that. All right, good example. Okay, guys, this is what I had for you tonight. Before I stop here, let me ask you if you have any questions. By the way, my idea is to record a session for you, finishing up all the other examples of cognitive biases for Friday's activity. What do you say? Sounds like a good idea? Eu estava planejando gravar para vocês uma sessão, talvez aí de meia hora, 40 minutinhos, concluindo com os outros exemplos de vieses cognitivos. Okay, but I'm going to try always to give you an example, okay? Because if you only talk about, like, in the abstract way, we don't really understand it, right? You have to look at real examples. Então é esse o plano, pessoal. Eu vou gravar uma sessão para vocês e vou disponibilizar antes da sexta-feira. Mas foco lá na lista de exercícios, até domingo. I want you all guys to start up with this very good grade. So you're going to build up your average. And by the end of the class, you're going to be like just smiling all the time. All right? Any questions, comments, suggestions, complaints? Algum comentário, dúvida, reclamação, sugestão?
Tá muito boa a aula. Só tô com vergonha de falar inglês.
All right.
Pode parar a gravação.
It's okay, never mind. You can speak in Portuguese, you can speak in English, you can speak in Spanish. I don't care. As long as you guys are understanding and you are getting this close contact with the language, it's okay. O importante é vocês manterem essa pegada de ficar ouvindo inglês, aprimorando. Às vezes não entende uma frase, mas entende o contexto e vamos assim. É assim que funciona. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop recording here and I'm going to be a few more minutes around if you want to ask